Now welcome to another lightning response video, where this time we got a question from Derek Lopez about one of my favorite Jedi, and he asked, "Hey Thor, I've been wanting to ask you, if Qui-Gon were still alive, would he have left the Jedi Order as soon as the Clone Wars began? Because he didn't believe in the Jedi becoming soldiers, since it goes against their philosophies, and he would have taken Anakin with him away from Coruscant. Also, why do people accuse Qui-Gon for cheating in the betting game with Watto, when the chance cube was rigged and loaded? Therefore, Watto had already tried cheating first. Even if Qui-Gon did cheat, it's not like he did it out of petty gains. He did it to try to free Anakin from slavery, and he was under no obligation to be fair with a slave owner. What are your thoughts?" Okay, so first of all, with the chance cube and Watto, which is something I have talked about before in other videos, so I'll keep it kind of brief here. But first of all, we technically don't know that Watto was cheating and that the dice or the die was loaded. I think we assume that it was based on Watto's reaction, that he seems more than a little surprised that he lost the roll, as if, yeah, it was loaded and he fully expected it to turn up red, and when he didn't, he was kind of surprised. But either way, loaded or not, the important part here is that the Force cannot just make everything it wants to happen. Yes, it has some control, but it doesn't have full control. If it did, there really wouldn't be much of a point to Star Wars, because things would, or so we would assume, they would always happen just as the Force wants it to happen if it had full control over everything. It would then essentially take away agency from the characters, and when you consider Star Wars is very much about the choices of characters, of the individuals, and the consequences or repercussions those choices oftentimes have, not only on the individual who makes them, but at times on the whole galaxy, well, the Force having the power to make anything it wants happen destroys pretty much the core idea behind Star Wars. It destroys the whole will you be selfless or selfish thing. Instead, you're just kind of going along with what the Force has laid out for you, and that's it. Though that said, yes, the Force does have a will. It does seem to desire certain things to happen or to play out in order for there to be balance in the galaxy, which is then where the Jedi come in and what they actually do. They try to carry out the will of the Force to make sure things happen that the Force wants to happen, the things that it cannot do on its own. And so going back to the Chance Cube role, Qui-Gon fully believes that the Force has led him to Anakin and that it wants him to free Anakin and to see him be trained, that he might even be the chosen one that will destroy the Sith, which are literally about to reappear and reaffirm Qui-Gon's belief in all of this. And so again, loaded, chance cube or not, Qui-Gon, from his point of view, is simply carrying out the will of the Force. He is doing what he has to do to make what the Force wants happen, and that is to see Anakin be freed so he can become a Jedi like the Force wants him to be, and then to go on to bring balance and destroy the Sith, potentially. And very likely, Qui-Gon doesn't see any sort of moral dilemma here with fixing a roll of a chance cube to see a child freed from slavery. He doesn't see that as cheating, even though I have seen plenty argue that he is cheating or defying fate or destiny somehow, that he is not allowing the role to play out as it was supposed to. And to that, I would argue virtually any time a Jedi uses the Force, pretty much no matter what they're doing with it, and if we consider it a sort of supernatural ability for simplicity's sake, but they are, in a sense, this isn't necessarily how I would put it, but they are sort of cheating because something is resulting from their use of the Force that otherwise would not or could not happen. But they are doing it to fulfill the will of the Force and to see there be balance. Obi-Wan mind-tricking a stormtrooper in A New Hope, for example, and them getting away with it without causing a scene, does not happen that way otherwise, without Obi-Wan using the Force and changing the fate of himself and Luke and the droids, you could say, and the fate of the whole damn galaxy in the process, by making sure the Death Star plans aren't taken back by the Empire right there and then. And again, I'd argue that isn't a whole lot different from Qui-Gon using the Force to change the role of a chance cube. In this case, we have Obi-Wan just changing the mind of a stormtrooper. It is simply something small that the Force is being used to alter. Okay, so with that covered, let's move on to the other part of the question. What if Qui-Gon had lived? Would he have fought in the Clone Wars, or would he have left the Jedi Order and taken Anakin with him? And honestly, this is a difficult one because there is another very, very big variable here to consider, that being Count Dooku, who, or so I'd imagine, or even based off what he says to Obi-Wan in Attack of the Clones,
Qui-Gon always spoke very highly of you. I wish she were still alive. I could use his help right now.
He likely seeks out Qui-Gon at some point in an effort to recruit him to his cause. And who knows what happens there? Maybe, though probably unlikely, Qui-Gon is able to reason with Dooku, help him see some of the errors in his ways or flaws in his thinking, and saves him from falling to the dark side and going along with Palpatine's plan. Even though the new canon has established that Dooku has left the Order and fallen to the dark side even before the death of Qui-Gon Jinn. But either way, there is at least a small chance that Dooku listens to Qui-Gon and comes back to the light and comes to fully believe in Anakin and the prophecy, especially given he knows the extent of the Sith's current plans. There's also a chance that, who knows, maybe Qui-Gon is swayed to some extent by Dooku, not saying he ever goes dark side or anything quite like that, but I do think, again, that pretty much without question Dooku goes to Qui-Gon at some point, and that there is a chance Qui-Gon further sees the corruption in the Republic, sees how the Jedi have become very intertwined with that corrupted Republic, to the point where they're even becoming servants of it and not of the Force, and that, not knowing Dooku has gone full dark side, maybe he even sides with him. Maybe he believes, as Dooku says to Obi-Wan, that a Sith Lord is in control of the Senate, and then figures it's Anakin's destiny to defeat that Sith. And I'm not exactly saying that I think Qui-Gon would suit up for battle and fight for the Separatists against the Republic and Jedi when war ultimately breaks out, but it's hard to see a path or scenario, again, given Dooku being this huge variable which is going to have influence over Qui-Gon, but it's hard to see the course of events that would ever lead Qui-Gon to becoming a general in the Grand Army of the Republic, leading clones into battle against Dooku, against his former master, against the Separatists, and doing it all with Anakin at his side. And so, assuming he doesn't, again, in a sense, go with or side with Dooku, which I'm really not sure he ever does. Again, I think he sees some of the points his old master has, but ultimately doesn't join with him. And so, assuming he doesn't go with Dooku and stays a Jedi, I think when the war breaks out, he refuses to fight in it, and that's pretty much that. I don't think he leaves the Order or anything, nor do I think the Council tries to force him to fight in the war or kicks him out if he doesn't. I think he keeps training Anakin, convinced more than ever that this is all the work of the dark side, the work of the Sith, and that Anakin was indeed sent to him by the Force to be trained in order to ultimately destroy the Sith that will reveal themselves at some point, which is also what I think the Force wants to happen, what the plan is with Anakin, what its will is, you could say, that it wanted Qui-Gon to find him, to train him, and keep him out of this war that is probably all but inevitable. I don't think there's a way to avoid the Clone Wars anymore, and what Anakin is needed for, what he is created for, you could say, or what the Force sees him doing, is, no, not becoming Darth Vader and destroying Palpatine and the Sith in this roundabout way, you could say, by eventually becoming one and turning back to the light and all that. I think the Force somehow at some point wants him to literally defeat Sidious, and potentially Dooku too if he is still around, or maybe it sees Qui-Gon having to defeat Dooku, having to defeat his old master, and Anakin needing to defeat Palpatine. Maybe that is the plan of the Force all along. But either way, I just don't see Qui-Gon and Anakin fighting in the Clone Wars. Well, that's going to be all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn. Take to the comments below and tell me what you think about this one. Would Qui-Gon become a general? Would he go to war with Anakin at his side? Or would he maybe go to war with the other side? Or would he choose a different path altogether? Or you can always ask a question for a future lightning response video. All you got to do is you start your comment off with "Hey Thor," ask your question, and I try to answer it in a future video. But whatever you choose to do, leave a comment below. Let's talk some Star Wars, and until next time, thanks for watching.